كانت بكركي كانت تأييد.
Good afternoon and thank you for joining us on Future TV. I'm Linda Tamim and these are today's top stories. Speaker Nabih Berri said June 9th at the 6th session to elect a president as local politicians and foreign diplomats condemn the presidential vacuum. Contract professors at the Lebanese University announced a two-day strike to protest the government's failure to upgrade their status to full-timers. And millions of Egyptians begin voting for their third president, in a race largely expected to be won by the country's former army chief Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Free Patriotic Movement chief Michel Aoun has condemned the presidential vacuum, saying it damages the legitimacy of other state authorities. Speaking at a press conference in Rabie, Aoun said he will not declare himself a presidential candidate unless the battle becomes serious. He stressed that a cabinet cannot endure in the absence of the head of state, adding that a vacancy in the president's seat is unconstitutional. He reiterates that the country needs a strong president acceptable to both his sect and others, and a president who represents Christians, quoting both Maronite Patriarch Bashar al-Rai and former Prime Minister Saad Hariri. He said negotiations between the Free Patriotic Movement and the Future Movement on a new president were ongoing. Deputy Marwan Hamedi says efforts are ongoing to fill in the presidential vacuum in a way that other institutions are not disrupted. Hamedi stresses the need to avoid linking the salary scale issue to the presidential void. He adds that the parliament session, which is scheduled to convene tomorrow, depends on the political bloc's stances. The deputy says that an agreement between Speaker Nabih Berri has been reached to find a solution to the salary scale and to give workers their rights without affecting the budget. British Ambassador to Lebanon Tom Fletcher has held a meeting with Prime Minister Tamam Slam at the Grand Sarai. The diplomat stresses the need to elect a president in Lebanon, saying the opportunity to choose a president made in Lebanon remains despite the presidential vacuum.
Continuity of state institutions at this time is vital. The opportunity to choose a president on time has been missed. But the opportunity to choose a president made in Lebanon remains. There is no magic international answer. There is no magic international fix, and it is a dangerous illusion to pretend that there is. Lebanon needs a president to take this country forward, to provide the balance its institutions require, to confront humanitarian, economic, political challenges, to lead much-needed dialogue. This is a different phase, but Lebanon has come through tough times before. And with the right spirit of responsibility and compromise, we can come through this.
In similar remarks, UN Special Coordinator for Lebanon, Derek Plummy, has lamented the parliament's failure to elect a new president, expressing the UN's regret over the emergence of vacuum in the presidency. He therefore called on Lebanon's leaders to engage intensively to ensure the election of a new president without delay. Plummy also paid tribute to former President Michel Sleiman's leadership during 6 critical years and to his commitment to Lebanon's unity and stability. Speaker Nabih Berri said June 9th as the 6th session to elect a new head of state. 4 of the past 5 sessions failed to be held due to a lack of quorum between the March 8 and 14 alliances, Parliament, and March 8's boycott of the meeting. Rafiq Hariri University Hospital employees have stopped receiving patients in act of protest. The employees reportedly closed all entrances of the hospital, including the door of the emergency department. They have been calling for payment of overdue salaries and expenses. Contract professors at the Lebanese University have announced a 2-day strike on May the 27th and 28th to protest the government's failure to upgrade their status to full-timers. This comes after the head of the Lebanese University, Adnan Said Hussein, called for a 1-day strike this week after the cabinet failed to endorse demands of a state-owned educational institute. And on the ground, Syrian jets have fired at least 4 rockets on the outskirts of Arsal, but there was no immediate word on casualties. Security sources say the raid targeted the Hamouda Zarour Wadi Kabir triangle as the far end of Arsal. The area is normally packed with residents at this time of the year due to the harvest season of cherries. The Jordanian government has expelled Syria's ambassador to Amman, Bahjat Sleiman, over his repeated insults to the kingdom and other countries. Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Sabah Rafi says the government considers the Syrian diplomat persona non grata and demands he leave the country within 24 hours. The spokeswoman says Sleiman used Jordan as a platform to question its positions and threw false accusations and allegations against the kingdom. Millions of Egyptians have begun voting for their third president in as many years in a race largely expected to be won by the country's former army chief Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. The two-day vote pits al-Sisi, who enjoys widespread popularity in the country of 90 million, against left-wing candidate Hamdeen Sabahi. The former legislator and long-term Nasserist activist Sabahi came in third when he ran for Egypt's top post in 2012. Many doubt how free the presidential polls really are and have accused the current government of cracking down on dissent. The vote is part of a political roadmap announced by Sisi after he led a coup that ousted Egypt's first democratically elected president, Mohamed Morsi. Pope Francis continues his three-day visit to the Holy Land, traveling across Jerusalem on a tour of religious and political sites. This morning, the pontiff started at Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third holiest site in Islam, where he met the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem. Pope Francis urged members of the three monotheistic faiths not to abuse the name of God through violence. He then descended to the Western Wall, the remains of the biblical Second Temple and the holiest site at which Jews are permitted to pray. The Pope also made an impromptu stop at an Israeli memorial for victims of militant attacks on Mount Herzl. And coming up next, Ricardo Karam talks to us about awarding Arab men and women who are behind many industries' big successes. Stay tuned. Welcome back. On to Yumna Naufal for our exclusive interview.
Thank you, Linda. We have the pleasure to welcome in our studios today Mr. Ricardo Karam, who is the founder of Takrim. Takrim's mission is to find ways to feature the untold stories of Arab men and women who achieve in the fields of entrepreneurship, humanitarian and civil services, environmental development and sustainability, scientific and technological advancement, and much more. Welcome, Mr. Colleague of mine, Mr. Ricardo. I want to start by asking you, Takrim's jury board, which recently convened in London to deliberate the 2014 laureates in the following fields that I mentioned, include Her Excellency Queen Noor al-Hussein, Mr. Carlos Ghassan, Mrs. Noura Jumlat, among many. And I know you went together, you had a meeting to try to see how this is going to happen and who the awards are going to go to. So can you walk me step by step on how it all works?
First of all, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Second, we all concur that we lack role models in the Arab world, and wherever we go, if you do a survey, whether in Cairo, in Damascus, in Beirut, in Amman, in any part of the Arab world, and you question the youth, who are your role models? They never have an answer to give. So we thought, why not creating a platform that can gather all those success stories and all those untold stories of people, men and women, who have embraced success and who can constitute an inspiration to all those young people.
Is this the first year Takrim is doing this?
No, this is the 5th year. We've just now entered the 5th year, and the culmination of what we do is an award ceremony which happens every year in different Arab city. The previous ceremonies occurred in Beirut, Doha, Manama, last year in Paris at the Arab World Institute, and this year is going to be in Marrakesh.
How does the jury decide on how to award? So what's the process? Is there somebody that applies, or do you deliberate it between yourselves? How does it work?
The mechanism is so complex. We have 2 different steps and actually a lot of bylaws. We have a committee made up of 10 people for each discipline or each category, and this committee shortlists 3 or 4 names among hundreds of candidatures that we receive every year. And then those files are sent to the jury board a month prior to the meeting, which happens in London or Paris and Geneva, usually in Europe for security reasons. And then the jury board convenes, and this is where the discussion and the debate start. And sometimes, they reach a cul-de-sac, a dead end, and they don't know, who to choose. And then they start...
So say you reach dead end. How do you proceed?
Once we have the decisions or the results, we inform the winners or the people who have been picked up, and most of them actually did not nominate themselves. They were nominated, so they don't know that they are part of a certain competition. And then we inform them 6 months before, so they prepare themselves to the big award ceremony. And this award ceremony is filmed and is aired on several networks all over the Arab world.
I want to ask, how do you think Takrim differs from other Arab awards that are given to successful people?
I guess it's credible, it's transparent, and it's very objective.
Define credibility.
It's abiding by rules, by regulations, and it's not you and I sitting together having some popcorns and deciding who the winners are. Usually everything is tailor-made according to a certain person, and usually those awards are given to rulers, to sheikh, to prince, to head of states, to sponsors, to big CEOs, whereas we look for unsung heroes, people who are not known at all, and people who have made it, and who usually work behind the radar.
Give me, could you name a few of the past laureates?
I can think about Suhair Belhassan, a Tunisian activist who fought for the rights of men and women in her country, and who was outside Tunisia for 25 years. I can think about Helen Thomas, the famous spokeswoman at the White House, and the late journalist of Arab descent, of Lebanese descent actually. I can think about Saad Abdel Latif, a corporate leader who had left us a year ago, unfortunately, due to a heart stroke. I can think of young entrepreneurs. I can think about Khaled Sabawi, the Palestinian guy, and many more actually.
And it encompasses all of the Arab world. And you said this year you managed to get North Africa in as well.
And so important for us to conquer.
So it's the MENA region now.
The MENA region. It has always been the MENA region. And the reason why every year we move from one city to another is to make the different societies of the Arab world concerned with what we're doing. So they wouldn't say this is the Levantine initiative or this is an initiative pertaining to the Gulf. This is a pan-Arab initiative that's targeting the different parts of the Arab world.
You said the mission is to spot those stories. When people are nominating other people, is it because usually they've heard about somebody and then they go directly to, so say somebody wants to nominate somebody for a Takrim award, how does the process go for our viewers that are watching?
If it's not part of the community of Takrim, any recommendation, any suggestion is more than welcome. Our online service, is open to anybody, and then we always receive emails, tons of emails actually, from people all over recommending, and definitely due to what I do as a journalist, I'm all over the world. Also, I listen, I hear, I get suggestions, and I wouldn't ask more than now, after this interview, to receiving new suggestions and new candidates.
So for all people who are watching, your message would be, if you have an untold story, if you know of an unsung hero, then definitely visit Takrim, learn more about it, and try to recommend somebody you think should be basically put in the limelight, right?
Definitely, because you'll be inspiring the youth in the Arab world, and you'll be contributing in changing this false perception of Arabs spread all over.
And the annual award ceremony is to be held on November 8 in Marrakesh, am I right?
Exactly.
All right, I hope to see you then too. Is the public allowed to go?
Yeah.
What about colleagues?
Your family.
What about colleagues?
And actually, FutureTV is among our partners, media partners in the beginning.
Thank you. From one family member to another, that was Mr. Ricardo Karam talking to us about Takrim and the special awards of unsung heroes. Back to you, Linda.
Thank you, Yumna. This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our headlines. Speaker Nabih Berri said June 9th as the sixth session to elect a president, as local politicians and foreign diplomats condemn the presidential vacuum. Contract professors at the Lebanese University announced a two-day strike to protest the government's failure to upgrade their status to full-timers. And millions of Egyptians begin voting for their third president, a race largely expected to be won by the country's former army chief, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. That's it from us here at Future Television. Catch us again tomorrow for more updates. Take care till then.
مذكرة كركي كانت تأييد